My guest today is Kim Abbate from, oh, you've got a number of things, Kim. You live in a small, beautiful village nestled in the mountains in Victoria, in country Victoria, called Bright. Now, can you tell us a bit? You've got a you run a small web design company. You do some social media advisory for small businesses in the area, but you also run a blog called 365 Things to Do in Bright.
Yes, that's correct. So I started out with the web design business, and I basically just do small websites for small businesses in the area. Then I branched out to doing a bit of blogging, and I've got a couple of blogs. I've got Working Women Australia and 365 Things to Do in Bright. I've definitely got a passion for the area. It's such a beautiful place to live, and I just wanted to share it with everyone. I also do social media for a few small businesses in the area. They're definitely interested in getting out into the digital marketing sphere, but they just don't have the know-how to do it themselves. So I do a couple of hours a week at a few various businesses to help them out with that.
So while we're chatting, is recently you orchestrated or you came up with an initiative on behalf of your blog, 365 Things to Do in Bright. Mm-hmm. And it was called Bright Delight, and by way of declaring I was part of this initiative, as in I was invited to come down, and you invited 11 bloggers, was it 11 bloggers attended, and so this was what you call a blogger outreach type activity. Do you want to walk us through what happened, what you did, why you were doing it, and then we'll talk a bit about the results and the learnings and that sort of thing, because you know, being in PR and you know, a lot of the readers of PR Warrior are marketing communications people, and this whole thing about you know, there's so many more influencers out there, bloggers in Australia. We have such a thriving blogging community, and collectively they're quite influential. So you know, I know PR firms and brands are reaching out a lot more to bloggers. So can you tell us what was the concept, why you came up with the idea, and how you came up with the idea, and we'll chat through how it unfolded.
Sure. So the original idea came about because I'd heard of a few different blogger outreach programs that had been done in different places. As far as I knew, nothing had been done in Bright, and so I approached the local shire and came up with a budget, spoke to a couple of PR people who gave me some advice on the best way to go about it. And I put together a full program and went to the shire and said, can I please have some money to put this on? I knew that they probably didn't have the time to do it themselves, and I also had connections through blogging myself. So they said yes, which surprised me more than anyone else. And when I was at PB event last year, I went up to
the Pro Blogger event. Yep.
Yeah, the Pro Blogger event. I approached Kaz and Craig Makepeace, who are travel bloggers, and I thought it would be a great fit, and I worked from there. They said yes straight away, which was a big score for me because they've got a massive following, and they're in the right industry.
On Pinterest, they've got something like 4 million followers or something. It's crazy.
Amazing, yeah. And they also, while they were here, they did a lot more than I had expected or anticipated in terms of putting things on their own Pinterest page and Instagram and tweets and things like that. So it was really good. So there was the two of them, and there was also yourself, Katrina Hyam, Renee Bugg, Caroline Childerley, Kim from Melbourne Mum. I'm going to make sure I don't forget anyone here. We also had Crash Test Mummy. We had Carly from Tiny Savages. We had, I'm just trying to think, I think I've said Renee Bugg. So
yeah. It's a real broad mix too.
Yes.
Travel, lifestyle, yes, parenting, marketing. You know, a real mix, and all got audiences, all established, but reaching different people.
Definitely. And I think we really thought about who we invited before we went ahead, because we wanted to cover a few different things. There's a brand new cooking school here in Bright by Patricia Simone, and so we wanted some foodie bloggers to go along to her cooking school, and we wanted there was also Pip McDonald came along, and she's a bit more adventurous, so we had some activities that we thought would fit with her and her blog readers and things like that. So we had...
So highly targeted, highly selected, that sort of thing.
Definitely. Yep.
So, and looking at all of those bloggers, and this is the thing with blogging today, is that they're not just bloggers. If, you know, chances are they're connected across a number of spheres. So if we look at Kaz and Craig Makepeace, then, you know, it's 4 million on Pinterest, and they're always using Instagram, and virtually everyone was on Twitter. So it's probably a little bit of a misnomer just to call them bloggers now, because they're sort of multimedia content creators, and having seen them in action as well, we you know, at a couple of the stops, and, you know, everyone jumps out, and the first thing they're doing is got the iPhones out and Instagramming all the local shops and everything. And it was, you know, those things find their way on Twitter, and there was a Twitter hashtag called, was Bright Delight, wasn't it?
Right. Yep. And that over the weekend I was hoping to get between 1 and 300,000 Twitter impressions for that, and it ended up with 1.2 million, according to a report from TweetReach. So that just far exceeded my
1.2 million Twitter impressions. Wow.
Yeah.
And it was active, and there was, you know, people who weren't there were interacting with the bloggers that were part of that weekend. Yeah. And so how does it unfold then? So what are the lessons you and having, as I was being on it, it was very well organised. So the whole idea was to give everyone an experience, and I think that's key learning there, right then and there. And maybe this is a little bit different than when you're dealing with the journalist, probably a travel journalist. It's all about the experience. But with bloggers for anything, it's a lot about getting their hands dirty, getting them behind the scenes. They're interested in the experience. Most of them probably aren't professional bloggers, but they're very serious about their craft, and their multimedia video, you know, and as we said, they tweet, taking photos, Instagram, and write. How did you come up with, which came first? Was it the things that you wanted to get across and then pick the bloggers, or was it the bloggers and then you try and match them, or a bit of both?
It was definitely the experience is a key word in all of that, and that's what came first. So I thought about what experiences I could offer to people in terms of what Bright has to offer. And it's very well known around the traps, obviously being at the foot of the snow hills for that side of things. But throughout the year, there's a lot of things you can do. So I thought of things like the cooking class, and that's something that these people probably wouldn't have done themselves if it hadn't have been organised through this event. They had helicopter flights, which is also something that most people probably wouldn't do themselves. So they got literally a bird's eye view of the area, which I think was definitely a big hit. We went out to wineries, and they were taken into the back rooms and tasted wines at different stages of being ready and fermented and all that sort of thing. So I think I thought about it as being an experience, and you can only expect so much of the bloggers who come along. If you don't give them something to talk about, then they won't talk about it online. So I gave them massive wow factors so that they would hopefully want to talk about it and tweet about it and Instagram it, and they all did, which was wonderful.
And genuinely too, content rich.
Yes, definitely, yeah. Which, you know, blog readers can certainly see straight through that sort of thing. If I know that I myself have read a few blog posts that are reviews or something like that, and you can tell that it's not a genuine feeling. When someone's really excited about a helicopter or something, it comes through, yeah.
So you had the 1.2 million Twitter impressions according to TweetReach. A number of them are on Facebook. What was sort of the numbers around Facebook that you know of?
So just on the 365 Things to Do in Bright Facebook page, on the 24 hours that the event ran, there was 15,000 people reached, which was also a really good number in my opinion. I've only got a very small blog and had at that time a very small Facebook following, but it it exploded that weekend. There was a lot of people heard about Bright and heard about my blog over that weekend, and the results far exceeded what I could have hoped for across all forms of social media. So it was
and
really...
the blog itself is a direct promotional tool for Bright the town.
Definitely. The idea behind it is that it's about 80% sponsored posts.
Yep.
So businesses pay to be on there. And a lot of the businesses who were part of the Bright Delight weekend donated their time and services. So from accommodation to helicopter flights to the cooking class, a lot of it was actually donated, because although those businesses aren't in blogging or social media themselves, they could really see the benefit to them.
And so that's an interesting one. I mean, they're not, and we did speak to some of the businesses along the way as well, and there was a lot of interest in understanding social media and doing it, starting, or some had started and wanted to do it better. So there's obviously an appetite for it, but there was great enthusiasm, and I guess that's the thing when you're going to do something with companies and brands, and you had to do it with a number of businesses collectively. The challenge is getting people all on the one page in terms of what it is, the expectations, etc. Businesses can understand an article in a newspaper, but this is probably a different realm for them.
Definitely. I first introduced the idea of Bright Delight to my local Chamber of Commerce, and the moment I started speaking about blogging and social media, I could see people's eyes glazing over. It did take a lot of convincing, and I did have to show people statistics and facts and things like that for them to get on board. But once they were on board, they were all very enthusiastic about it. But it did take some convincing, and I understand that too, because for us, it's something that we live and breathe. But for some people who have been in their business for 25, 30 years and they've always done it one way and advertised in the local RACV print magazine, it's a new way for them to put their money where their mouth is. So it did take a bit of convincing, but we got there in the end. And
it's also a way for small businesses, particularly when they band together. I think that was the key to it. Alone it's very difficult. Banding together, certainly support of the Shire Council, which is fantastic. By doing that, it's you can deliver the experience, and you're reaching different people too. It doesn't mean that the things that you do, the RACV magazines, if that works, you still do it. But ultimately, to be able to get to come together with strength collectively and reach new audiences through different mediums. And I think once people understand it and see it in action, that's when people come on board.
Yeah. So following the event and after people who weren't, their businesses weren't a part of it, after they saw what happened with Bright Delight, I was approached by quite a few businesses that they would like to be on board for the next event, which I still have to talk to the Shire about, but I'm hoping to put another one on this year again, because it was very successful for the town, and it was a completely different way and different audience that we were reaching, like you say.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know Bright, I mean, it's massive in the snow season, but outside of snow, outside of the season, that's the thing when you want to, like all towns that are in a seasonal area, that there are other things to do outside of that particular, outside of winter, for example.
And I think that was one of the things we wanted to get across as well. There's this misconception about Bright, and this is another marketing thing. People assume that winter is the biggest time, who don't come here all the time. So the people who aren't necessarily travelling here in autumn and spring when we've got massive festivals that are on, they just assume that we're really busy in winter. Whereas I would say Easter and Christmas are our busiest times. The town has a population of about 2,500, and it swells to about 35 to 40,000 over those periods of time, just with holiday makers who come here. So through Bright Delight, we also wanted to let people know that there's these other offerings, and I think it's certainly, we achieved that. We let people know that there was other things to do here aside from play in the snow.
And plus, very well established businesses that would stand alone, in the foodie area, that stand alone in Melbourne, and some, a lot to offer in terms of restaurants and obviously the sites and everything else. So You know, and you can't change people's perceptions overnight. Marketing today is doing you know, lots of micro interactions sometimes,
Yes.
piecing together a lot of other elements over and above the more traditional things you do.
Yeah.
And just so finishing up, so you had probably about 8 or 9 stories as a result from the bloggers. Some of them had obviously bigger readerships than others, but it was probably the collective you're looking at.
Yeah. I think we probably had the most coverage from Why Travel blog. They did several different blog posts about Bright Delight, and also one of those blog posts was featured on the National Geographic page,
Wow.
which was just such a win. That gave me goosebumps. It was very exciting. And then, yeah, a lot of the other bloggers also wrote stories, and they all really took different angles, which was fantastic. One of the people, Crash Test Mummy, who was here, was talking about the fact that she'd quit sugar, and the foodie experience that she had in Bright meant that, you know, the paddock to plate side of things, she was still able to eat out, and another person took it from the side of they went to great wineries. So, you know, all of these people had different angles that they came from, but all of those were wonderful and reached a wider audience than I could have done on my own.
So, in conclusion, what are the couple of the lessons, and what was there something that just blew you away that you weren't expecting, and that could well have been the National Geographic, but just a couple of I guess lessons that you found as a result of doing it, and things that blew you away.
Okay, so one of the main lessons I learnt was to spend some more time speaking to the local businesses about what was going to be happening. We had a very minor hiccup during the last morning. We were doing a bit of a scavenger hunt, and there was a minor hiccup. One of the businesses didn't read the information that I'd given them, and although I'd spoken to them, didn't actually understand the concept. So I will have to make sure next time that people really understand what's going on, just to make sure that everybody's experience is good over the time that we do the event. The two things that blew me away were the Twitter impressions, and also being on National Geographic's page. They were just well beyond my expectations, and really wonderful for Bright as a township. So yeah, I'll definitely do things a little bit differently this year, but not a lot differently, I have to say.
No, well, I mean, you've got to, you know, it's the first time you learn as you go along, and particularly when you've got multiple stakeholders, and you know, it's just a matter of getting them on board early. But now you can say, well, this is what happened last year, and certainly number 2 makes it easier, having gone through the process in the first instance. Well, thank you very much, Kim, for your time, and for sharing those learnings and lessons with us, and and how well it went in terms of all the statistics, etc. And good luck with getting across the line a second time.
Thank you.
Okay,
thanks very much.